I'm a publisher, and one day my daughter Christina asked me to write a novel with her. Well, that day was long ago, and that little girl is now an adult. But our novels live on. The Truth Seekers Mystery Series highlights a homeschool family, the Murphy teens, in an action-adventure novel that is sure to entertain as well as teach creation truths. To get your copy, visit our website at truthseekersmysteryseries.com.
This is a production of the Ultimate Homeschool Radio Network. Welcome to the Vintage Homeschool Mom Show. Your host, Felice Gerwitz, is an author, a publisher, and your radio show host. She will encourage, educate, and inspire you with answers to your most pressing questions, from homeschool, marriage, parenting, and much more. Felice loves to equip moms to live a Christian life because every moment counts. Be sure to visit her website at mediaangels.com. And here's your host, Felice Gerwitz.
Hey everyone, and welcome. This is Felice Gerwitz, and we have an exciting show for you today. Have you read a series of books that could possibly change not only our educational landscape, but your kids for the better? Well, today we are going to be talking to an author who I'm going to bring on in just a minute. We are talking about education within the pages of a novel, and you can find today's show notes at vintagehomeschoolmoms.com, episode 469, and the topic today is novel education. My special guest, who was on episode 448 of Vintage Homeschool Moms Classroom Creativity, The Key to Education, is with me today. He is an author, a public speaker, a mastermind behind the Britfield media empire. And I'd like to welcome Mr. Chad Stewart. Welcome, Chad.
Thank you for having me.
Well, I'm excited because you have been busy since the last time we had the interview, and you've progressed with many projects. I think at that time you had 2 books, and you had book 3 in the works, a theatrical play, and the first Britfield movie that was in the works. So first of all, did I leave anything out? I'm sure I left a lot out of your bio.
Oh, no, but that's good. That's a good overview. Yeah.
But they can find out more at Britfield.com, and that's BRITFIELD.com. It's a really cool interactive website. Parents, you'll want to check it out with your kids. And then there's also BritfieldInstitute.org. So, Chad, your books are amazing. And before we dive into that, just give us a little bit of a background of what is going on with the Britfield series.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it started as an idea over 10 years ago. I'm originally from Newport Beach, California. I was back east in Massachusetts, Wellesley, Massachusetts. And that's when the whole concept or idea of the first book, Britfield and the Lost Crown, started. And it took me 4 years and 2,500 hours to write book 1. And it took over 10 years from concept to launching in August of 2019, the first in a 7-book series. And since then, since August, it's been absolutely amazing. The feedback has been tremendous. Britfield and Lost Crown is one of the most awarded books in children's fiction. We were on multiple national school tours. I ended up driving 9,000 miles, 23 states, visited over 180 schools, and presented in front of more than 40,000 students in every imaginable situation, as far as auditoriums packed with 400 4th through 8th graders to small libraries with 50 or 60, homeschool, farm in Reno, Nevada, to top private schools in New Orleans, to Memphis, Tennessee. So amazing impact, amazing launch of the series. And we launched book 2, Britfield and the Rise of the Lion, last year, July 4th. And we're getting ready to launch Britfield and the Rise of the Lion this year, August 2022. So it's really the trilogy of a 7-book series. And it's interesting in the book world, and we can talk more about this if we have time, but it's great to have the first book, but it's really not until you hit that trilogy that sort of seems to be the the magic number, if you will.
Right. Because kids want to collect books, I think. They love
do.
book collections. Yeah.
And for anyone that comes into book one, it's like they read it, they love it, and they have nowhere to go. And then suddenly they can go to book two, and then they got to wait. And so it's to have the three keeps them busy at least for a couple of months. So we're excited about that. I'll start on book four this fall, and then not sure when that's going to launch. But I think what's unique and exciting about the series, and we can talk more about this because it's going to tie into education and influence and impact on history, is that each book it's placed in current time. So it's not post-apocalyptic. It's not back in history. It takes place in different countries. So first one's in England, second one's in France, third one's in Italy. And as Tom and Sarah, the two main characters, are in this exciting adventure, which has a royal thread to it, they're visiting all these different places. So I incorporate history, geography, art, architecture, and culture. So we like to call it stealth education, but as children are reading these books, they're learning. And I think that's what's so exciting. They're not learning about, fantasy worlds or space or demigods or,
right.
superheroes. They're learning about real places, real things. And, with all the series, it really makes them think. We bring in the critical thinking, the creativity, the communication, the collaboration.
Right. And there's a lot of, excitement in your books. They're definitely an adventure series. And, so there's a lot of excitement to keep the kids going. And I know when I was a kid and would read, I'd get in trouble for reading. My dad would talk to me and I didn't hear him because I was so immersed. So my punishment as a kid was I'd get my books taken away. I know. We used to laugh about it years later, but that was the only way.
Only that was a problem today.
Right. Right. But, and I think I love what you're doing, and you're going to share that as well. As because the preface to this episode was that, this series really has some life-changing aspects. And for those of you who are listening in my audience, we are, a lot of you are homeschoolers, of course, some of you are not. So we already see what the issues are with education. And then with the whole, issue of the schools getting closed down and so forth, a lot of parents got to sit in and watch their children's education unfold before their eyes. And a lot of them were shocked by what they saw. So there was a big exodus into homeschooling. And a lot of parents are looking for good quality materials that they can use alongside their children's education and books. Because to be honest with you, Chad, when my kids were, really loved reading, we would have to go either if they got a gift card to the bookstore or even go to the library, and they would bring the books that they wanted to buy, for example, at the bookstore, and we'd be in the coffee shop and I would be flipping the backs of them and skimming the books to see if they were acceptable, because the first chapter might not be bad, but then when you get into the book, you could see some aspects and you could kind of tell by the write-up. And It was terrible because out of 10 books, maybe 3 were acceptable, and it was a hard process, and not every parent is going to do that. Right. Yeah. So that's why I'm glad to have you on. And I've actually been through book 1 entirely. Book 2, I'm halfway through. And the reason I just got it back. I think I showed it to you on the screen. We're on video here, but we're only recording the audio, but that's because I just got it back from my granddaughter. So what happens is when grandma gets books, sometimes they get stolen. So, so that's actually a compliment, right? And so she's excited about book 3 coming out, and she's the big reader in the family. So first of all, share with us some of the things that you have seen that really have changed, in your opinion, education for the better with your series.
Yeah, absolutely. I think just to kind of restate what I said before, and I didn't realize when I started this 10 years ago, the need, for edifying books in the children's area. And it's interesting. It was almost 10 years ago when I started book 1. I didn't have any background, if you will, in writing children's fiction. I did as a writer. I used to write movie scripts, so I was very trained in that aspect. I was writing nonfiction, but again, to fictional books, adventure series, it's a whole nother ballpark. So I went to Barnes and Noble, and I started to see what was on the shelves. And quite frankly, this is 10 years ago, maybe 8 years ago, I was horrified. I mean, the books I grew up with, like sort of the Hardy Boys,
right.
Or James and the Giant Peach, or even some of Charles Dickens' novels, things like that were were fun, and they had a real element to it. But everything is so far gone, so fantasy, demigods, witchcraft, vampires. I mean, and it's just it's utterly ridiculous. And so I think that's where Britfield is, stand alone. I don't know its equal out there right now in the industry. I mean, what's so fun about it, as I said, is it's just based in reality. It's based in real time. That's a fictional story, but it's so important because kids can relate to it. Now, kids are never going to relate to Harry Potter. They might relate to Harry because he's an orphan, or he lost his parents, or he's an outsider. But he's a witch,
Right.
and so that's a huge disconnect with reality. And so kids will never make that sort of, if you will, final gap to it. There's nothing to draw from it. You can't wave a wand to solve your problems.
Right.
And so Tom and Sarah, my main characters, they're 12 years old in book 1. They're constantly with situations, and they're constantly discussing it. They're talking about it. What should we do? Let's try this. What about this? And they're having this sort of collaboration, this conversation, open communication, working things out, taking what they know and going out and trying to solve problems, or find a way to escape, or whatever it is. And sometimes they're the right answers, sometimes they're the wrong answers, but they try and they learn from their mistakes, and they improve along the way. And so I think just that practical impact of the characters, book 1, they're 12, book 2, they're 13, book 3, they're 14. And so that's really important too, because they're growing and they're maturing throughout the books. And then again, too, every book's in a new country. But I will say this, it's just immediate feedback. We on book 3. So book 3 is Britfield and the Return of the Prince. It's almost 600 pages, takes place in Italy. Tom and Sarah are now 14. On the 3rd manuscript, so I had, manuscript form, I had sent out to a couple of schools. One is in Mission Viejo, which is Southern California, private school there, and they've been wonderful. We've done a lot of work with them, and I've done 3 presentations.
They pre-read the novel. Do they have a draft copy? Okay, so do you get feedback? Okay,
and so there was 24 students from 14 to I think 10 or 11. And they were all kind of hand selected just because they were readers. Number 1, number 2, they had read book 1 and 2, and so they were familiar with the series. And so they had 3 weeks to read it, and then fill out a 3-page survey. I was down there 2 weeks ago at the library, 8 o'clock in the morning, first round of 4 to 5 students coming in, and we just sat around the table talking about book 3, what they thought, what they liked, what they didn't like, and I was just taking a ton of notes. But the feedback, and I'll never forget, especially from the girls, was that they just absolutely, they love the series, but from their mouth to my ears, they're like saying it's practical. I can learn things from it. I can relate to the characters. I can relate to the situations. I love how they think out their problems. I love how they, and I'm hearing it, like this 2 weeks ago, I'm hearing it from the students. Like we have specific objectives for the series and things that we're hoping to accomplish, improving literacy, bringing things back to family values and the basics, as I like to say, common sense, creativity and all those things. But to actually hear it from the students that we are having that impact, that they love the series, it makes them think, they love the adventure, they love the description. One of the greatest comments I got is that the books don't remind them of anything they've ever read. I think we scored about a 9.5 out of a scale 1 to 10, just out of that group that loved it. And so the feedback was tremendous. And then just last week, I was at a private school in Southern California in front of 150 students, big auditorium, 3rd through 8th, which is wow. I never really do.
Yeah, that's a big stretch between the 3rd graders and 8th graders.
And they were really cute. They're all in the front. They're all all excited, and the picture would go up, and it's like. But anyway, but it was just wonderful, just the impact we were having, just in real time. And this is like a week ago, and some of the feedback I was getting from the kids, and some that had read the series. And so I say all of this to say that I'm very in sync with my reading audience and what we're doing, set aside from the national school tours that we've done, where I've sat there for an hour and a half doing book signings, talking to each child that came by, personally signing the book to them and seeing what they thought of the series, or what they like to read, or all of these different things. And so I don't know many authors, if any, that has had that kind of impact and that sort of personal. I mean, it took me 18 months, give and take, breaks and stuff,
right,
of traveling across the nation. Yeah,
major road trip.
yeah, and we broke it up and stuff, but so
wonderful.
Hopefully that kind of answered it.
Yeah, and I think too, there's a mystery thread throughout the books, that the kids are trying to make sense of things. And as a reader, you're not really sure what's going on. You're pretty much, you might know a little bit more than the kids do in the book, the characters, but not a whole lot more. And so that's kind of fun. You're kind of solving it with the kids. The other is that they take care of each other.
Yes.
There's a real respect between the two, the two characters. And, and so of course, Sarah's really smart, which is,
Yes.
does help a lot. I think that it's really cool to watch how they're solving the mysteries. Plus, there's kind of this, historical background with the monarchy. And so I think before the first interview, I had just read something really interesting about, the whole, I won't give anything away, about the monarchy and what your books are pointing toward. But it was really fascinating that I had just randomly read that somewhere. And then I interviewed you, and I had asked you about that then, because, there's a question as to whether the monarchy existing should be so that was, and that was kind of interesting to read that. So,
and we're seeing some major transformations right now. It's interesting how in sync and almost prophetic these books are with what's happening right now. And most of the history in the book is accurate. That's what's so great about it. Of course, we have the Britfield threat. And many ask me, are the Britfields real? So I'm like, I don't know. Are they but no, yeah. I mean, we're very in sync with current times. And I think right now, and I like to say this, actually, I was being interviewed through Salem Communications, big interview back in January. And the gentleman who was interviewing me said, this is a part of history right now.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about me and Britfield and what we're doing. And I really like that. I think it is a part of history. It's that beginning of something really exciting and big and impactful and transformational, not just nationally, but globally. I mean, we're selling books right now in England and Australia and Germany. And I mean, we're getting feedback from all over the world. So it's exciting.
Yeah, I know that in our correspondence, especially with the first interview, I had been hit with so many different requests, and I have a lot of help in my business, but the one thing I don't have help with is emails, because I want to handle those. And I just gotten, inundated with people, who either had handlers or, wanted interviews. And some of it was just junk. Like I'd go click on and say, no. And so I think I just I'd gotten 2 or 3 from you guys, very insistent. And then finally I just emailed and I said, I just want to know 2 things. Number one is their gender ideology. And then I forgot what my other thing was. And you actually wrote back, because you were in the thread with other people, and you were kind of offended by that question. Well, your tone was strong. I don't know if you were offended or not, but it was like, no, absolutely not, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, I like this guy, so I'll have him on. But yeah, that's a lot of, there's a lot of politicking that's going on. There's a lot of subversiveness in some of the things you read. And
most of it
it is. Yeah. And that, I was telling you, and 10 years ago was probably when I was at the bookstore as well with my kids, because my youngest now is 21. So when we were going through, and we could not find acceptable things for them to read. I mean, in fact, we went back to a lot of the classics, and that helped, so, in fact, it was funny because you're talking about Hardy Boys and, even Nancy Drew and if you read those books today, you may say, well, this is not, something that could be read today because, someone's going to pull something out of that. That really is not there. So, so it's great to have something new, something that's exciting, something with a mystery, suspense kind of a thing. These kids do not sit still. They're racing against time. And, there are people that want their demise. And so it's really, it's really a fun read. And will keep the kids at the edge of their seats and occupied. I know you said that there is a study guide for book 1, correct? And that's on your website?
Yes, it's you can purchase it on the website. It's an 83-page study guide based on national standards, and it's wonderful. It goes through chapter by chapter. Britfield and Lost Ground is meant to be taught in the classroom or to a homeschool group, or if you're homeschooling, and it's perfect. So instead of teaching the other books out there, little by little, we're replacing the other crap that's in the schools, and they're bringing in Britfield, and kids are learning real things, real qualities. I think what's great about the series, and especially with book one, is that it really it challenges the reader, the child, to think for themselves. It challenges their critical thinking and their creativity. I create, the thread or the framework, but I don't fill in every detail. Where I think so many books have too much detail. You know what I mean? You're reading along, and it's story, and then 3 paragraphs of unnecessary detail. I don't do that. I keep it very tight. I'll be honest, with book 3, 600 pages, I had one girl that read it in 2 days, the manuscript. I mean, it's unbelievable. And it's funny what you were saying earlier on. There was 2 of the boys that said, "Oh my gosh, I couldn't stop reading it." He goes, "I got caught by my mom at 2 a.m. in the morning." And she said, lights out at 9 o'clock on a school day. And he goes, "But I was reading by the aquarium light, so I didn't really have the light on," right? He was justifying it. But and it's just it's the way that I structure it. I layer it, and I just keep them pulled in and engaged in reading. And our youngest reader for book 1 has been 7. Our oldest reader has been 93-year-old woman who read it in 5 hours. And I'd say half of our reading audience are adults. They love it. And I was mentioning earlier that just a couple of days ago or last week, received a wonderful, 2-3 paragraph email from a woman. And she says, "Oh my gosh," she goes, "my daughter loved this book. I have to tell you, I couldn't stop reading it." She goes, "I'm 63 years old." And she goes, "This is a great book," and she just goes, "I'm going to tell all my friends." You know what I mean? And we get that kind of feedback all the time from across the nation and even abroad. And of course it's encouraging. But it just we're having the kind of impact and influence that we want to have, that we're hoping to have, where we're getting people not only excited about reading, but they're reading something good, wholesome.
Right.
And I was going to say one thing, that this entire series is founded on family. That's the foundation. If you said, what's the theme of the book, right? It's family.
I think that was my second part of the thing. I said, are these family friendly? Because a lot of times, even within, we would do is do read alouds with our kids. And so we'd read 1 or 2 chapters of a book every evening. And, and so my kids really enjoyed that. That was when I asked them, what is one of the favorite things that we did as homeschoolers? And that was what they would bring up. We did a lot of trips and some really amazing things. My kids learned to scuba dive, and, they did some amazing things, but that was one of the things that they said they enjoyed the most. And my daughter's continued that legacy with her kids that she's homeschooling. And, the other interesting thing you talked about with the mom who said, her daughter loved it. I read books with my granddaughter. So I will sometimes, get the book on Kindle and then read it to see if it's appropriate enough. And she has a Kindle that is protected. So she can't get any books. She can only, and she's 14. So it's only books I send her, and it was one of my old Kindles. I have 2 Kindles. So that just tells you this is my third. I can read that much. And so that's my husband said, he goes, "Well, what's going to happen when you really retire?" He goes, "I'll never be able to talk to you. You'll have so many books downloaded." But I'm looking forward to it. But that's something that's great too, because as a parent, or grandparent, when you read the book, you can discuss that with your child. And that is so important because, I was talking to my granddaughter the other day, and, I have a beautiful pool and I never sit out there, with lounge chairs and an umbrella. So finally I said to her, "Sam, let's go out there. You and I are going to sit out there and read books and sit by the pool." So we did. And half the time we were talking about different we were reading different books, but characters and so forth. And it was amazing because it was interesting to see how she was thinking. It wasn't quite my perspective on things. So when you have a novel that the family is reading, or you're having your children read, one of the things I would highly recommend is that you read it so that you can discuss it with your children.
Yes.
And this series, at least I can say, is entertaining enough to keep our attention, because a lot of them aren't, they're, and a lot of the ones that she seemed to like had, some kind of historical background, or it
Mm-hmm.
was set in a specific time, like there was, turn of the century or something like that. And it was interesting because those were the books she was gravitating toward that were, real. A novel, but still with something that was foundational, like the turn of the century, and how some of the hardships and so forth. Whereas a lot of the stuff that's out there, I liken it to popcorn. It's fun, but like I remember watching my first superhero movie with my teenage boys, and all I could say was, "This is so destructive." Well, who's paying for that building being destroyed? And that's how my mind thinks, a little bit too practical. But it was, like I missed the storyline because it was taking me completely out of it. But and those are the blockbusters. So I'm really excited to see where this is heading. Before we end here, give me a little rundown of what is happening. So you've got some upcoming things releasing. And of course, if you're listening, this is 2022 summer. If you're listening to this in the future, always check out the author's website. So it's again, Britfield.com, BRITFIELD.com. But what's coming up, Chad? You've got a lot of stuff.
Yeah, we're excited. So we have the development of the first Britfield live action movie. So that's been in development for the last 6 months. I actually met with my producer yesterday for a couple of hours, which was great. We talk every week, but we actually met in person. He's up in LA, and so he came down, which was great. And so that's exciting, and that's starting, if you will, to rev up. We should probably have a major announcement and press releases, I would say by fall or October.
Okay, wonderful. And that comes out when? When does that release?
We're projecting December, or I like to say Christmas, but December 2024. And that's not really that far away. I know it seems like it's far, but it's not. That's the first of 7 movies. So, they'll be coming out probably every 18 months to 2 years, which is exciting. We're launching book 3 in August, nationally and globally, which is great because that hits our trilogy. It's 7 books, but there's something about that trilogy that's exciting. And they're just so well capped. You have sort of England, France, and Italy. And I think, it's funny too, because everyone might have the one hit wonder with book 1. But I think I love book 1. Book 1's always my
it's your baby.
My baby. Yeah. But
it took a long time.
But I love, and it's 384 pages. We've had 12-year-olds that have read it in 5 hours. So that should tell you a lot. But Book 2 is 474 pages. Thomas Era 13 takes place in France. It's a little more intense. I love it. I mean, the feedback. I had one feedback from we did a global interview back in January, and the gentleman had read book 1 and 2, and he said book 2. He said it's a historical marvel.
Wonderful. Yeah, it's very rich. It's very that's
and
rich.
Someone else said a masterpiece. And then my favorite comment is it's a combination. The Britfield series is a combination of C.S. Lewis and Dan Brown. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But no, so the launch of book 3 is big, and then the theatrical play. If we have a few minutes, go ahead.
Wait, so book 3 takes place in Italy. Where in Italy? Because I'm Italian, so I've been there.
Oh yeah, well you'll like this. I mean, it starts in Lucerne, Switzerland. Don't want to give anything away, and then Lake Como, and then Milan, and then Genoa, and then they drive through Pisa, and then Florence is the main one big scene. Rome, big scene, and then finally Venice, and then it ends up in Austria. So, but I also incorporate a lot more in Italy. But it's interesting too, because in book 1 you really just have London as the main city, right? Right. I mean, realistically, and then in book 2 it's like it's really Paris. I mean, it's but with Italy it's like that's why I think the book was so big. It's like Florence is its own
each one of those
volume. And then Rome, it's like I can't just have a couple pages in Rome. And then Venice, it's like each one was so unique, distinct, and it was a lot of fun to write. But it's very vivid, and I've really incorporated the landscape and the different towns that they visit, even Turin, and all these different places, and a little shout out here and there and stuff. So it's very rich and amazing, and it's fun because
So tell us about the screen. Wonderful. Tell us about the screenplay.
Yeah, the play. So it was suggested to me almost 2 years ago from a teacher that directed theater, actually at Mission Viejo school, that we were doing it as our first presentation. She said, "Do you ever think of making a Britfield as a play?" And of course, it's always been about the movies. It reads like a movie. 90%
Yeah, it
of
does.
the
It
feedback
does.
I get is like I thought I was in a movie. I thought I was there, but I'm like, no, I didn't. And then finally, in October of last year, we pulled the trigger, and I said, let's develop the play. But it's very specific. It's a play that's designed for middle schools. It'll eventually be adapted into a musical for Broadway. We've already talked about that. I've talked with another gentleman that does Broadway musicals and stuff, and that's down the road. But it was interesting too, just like anything else, like coming back to what we're talking about, coming to Barnes and Noble and not really knowing what's out there. I mean, what do I know about children's theater?
Mhm.
And so just really from that research, I found that it's really just it's like 40 or 50 of the same plays. Some Grease 50 years ago, The Outsiders, Newsies, Aladdin Jr. is a big one, Frozen, and so and then most of them are musicals. And I'm like, what you've done is you've really alienated 90% of the kids who want to go out for theater, because number one, they don't sing, and number
Right.
two, if you sing and you've got a great voice, what are you going to do with it? And I'm
Right.
not saying that to be offensive, but I'm saying good luck. Good luck going off to New York and auditioning for a Broadway play. But kids that want to act, and again too, it doesn't mean that they have to go into a career of acting, but acting is a wonderful background for communication and just having natural skills and stuff. And so we've designed Britfield specifically. It's like an actor's play. It's 90 minutes. It's a 2-act play. We've structured it so wonderful. I mean, it's hard because it's a big novel, and it's got a lot of different aspects to it and stories and moving parts. But it's finished. I'm working on the director's notes right now. It'll be launched or piloted in October. I think it's going to be huge, and exciting. But what's neat about it is that 30 to 40 different students can be involved in the play.
That's a lot. That's great.
It is, can be. And you've got about 15 to 20 different speaking roles throughout. So set aside from the obvious main characters, so they all have abilities to even give a little monologue or to speak or to do this. And they're involved in the play all the way through. So you have the orphanage, whether the orphanage at the beginning, and they're in the background, and that's great. And there's some monologues with different actors and stuff as the scenes are happening. And then as they move to Oxford, suddenly you have the students. This is what's a lot of fun. Is like what's great about the play too is that it's in current time. So most of the costumes will be the children's own clothing. So when they're at Oxford, they'll wear like a nice outfit,
Blazer,
wear to school, or a blazer, and they'll be walking around in the background, walking up the aisles, carrying books off to class, and suddenly they're the students at Oxford. It's taking place in the scene. And then when you're in London, they'll wear their Sunday best or their a suit or a nice dress, and one guy's carrying an umbrella, hailing a cab, and a couple of girls are walking up carrying cups of coffee, whatever you need. And so it's like they're in the play throughout. You as the audience are experiencing, literally think like you're looking around you, like you feel like you're in Oxford, you feel like you're in London.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have wonderful digital images in the back of the screen that will like when they're flying over Oxford, you'll see the peaks of Oxford. As they come into Windsor Castle, you'll see this gorgeous castle. London, there'll be sound effects, and it's a seamless presentation. And what I mean by that is there's never where like the lights go out and then there's a change of the scene and the lights go up. They'll be like the lights go out in the back, a light goes on center stage, and they're talking, and then that light goes out and then it goes back to the center stage, and then you know what I mean. So it's
very cool.
It's smooth transition of the whole thing. So anyway,
very
so we're
cool.
excited. Yeah, so once it's piloted and we see how it's received and we kind of tweak it, then we're launching it nationally. That's over 100,000 elementary middle schools next year.
Wonderful.
And so Britfield's going to be adapted by thousands of schools, and what I love about it is it's fresh, it's something fun, it's current, it's real, and it's based on family values, So instead of doing this mysticism and magic with Aladdin or Frozen, you have a real
right. Yeah, wonderful. All right, Chad, last words for the audience.
Oh, yeah. Well, just definitely check us out on Britfield.com. As you said, it's a wonderful award-winning website. It's got over 400 pictures of England. So book one, it's a great way to sort of walk through it. and see it and experience it. It's like I might describe Hyde Park or London or St. James or Mayfair, but you can actually see it. It's got over 100 pages of further information. We have all our resources there. We talk about our book tours. We have all our media interviews, media kit. So it's a great, fun, interactive website. Book one is hardcover, softcover, ebook, and audio. So it's an award-winning audio version.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
okay,
we won first place gold medal, Parents' Choice Award for the audio version from award-winning British voice talent, Ian Russell. So he did an amazing job. He does all the characters' voices. He doesn't just read it; he does all the characters' voices.
Wonderful.
So that is cool. We've received constant wonderful feedback about that, and then same thing with book two, and then we're really excited about book three. So check us out, support us, and spread the word.
Okay. Well, thanks so much for coming on. I appreciate it. Take care.
Great. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to the Vintage Homeschool Mom Show. Visit Felice at MediaAngels.com and TheVintageHomeschoolMoms.com. Vintage Homeschool Moms is a production of the Ultimate Homeschool Radio Network.